Go. And welcome to the show. This is the 2022 Dixon County Election Podcast, and I'm your host, Justin Spurlock, and really excited about today's episode. For those of you that don't know, I'm a teacher over at Dixon County High School, and I also have a newspaper column that comes out every Wednesday in the Dixon Post, and also do a radio show at WDKN every Saturday morning, 7 and 8 o'clock. Now, the reason we're doing this particular podcast is to give the listeners of Dixon County a little more information about the candidates that are running for office in the election cycle this year that's taking place. And actually, at this point in the season, we're getting pretty close to Election Day. Right now, currently, you can go early vote, and in just a little over a week, I guess, we'll be getting ready to make those selections for everybody else who has not early voted. So if you'd like to be on the podcast, we still have time. So contact me and we can get you on. Today, I'm lucky to be joined by another county commission candidate for seat number 7, district number 7, and that's Mr. Richard Riehn. How you doing today, sir?
Great, Justin. So glad to be with you.
Well, thank you so much for contacting me and coming on the podcast. I truly appreciate it. I've had the pleasure of interviewing several county commission candidates now, and it's kind of hard to believe that the election is almost here. It's seemed like it was a long time away, and now here we are in less than 2 weeks away.
I'm a racehorse that loves to come in at the finish.
Well, I'm so glad that you did because, like I said, I love these interviews and I love getting to meet people. And I think my favorite part about it is just meeting you guys and you and I hit it off, I think, here at the beginning. I really appreciate getting to know you and everything. It's been a lot of fun. Now, I don't know a lot about you, though, because we just recently have met. And so I purposely didn't ask too many questions about your personal life. I wanted to wait till the podcast, and I'd like to hear just a few things about you. So if you could, and I know there's a little noise in the background if anybody hears. It sounds like they're hammering something next door. So we just kind of persevere through on the podcast.
That's quite
here.
All right.
We're coming at you live from downtown Dixon today. We're at the Redbird Realty Studios here on College Street, and we share the building with several other businesses. So if you hear any noise, don't worry about that. We're just going to keep fighting on through. So, Richard, tell me just a little bit about your early life. We like to start here at the beginning and just give you a chance to talk about your background. And so, talk to me a little bit about where you grew up and kind of going to school and what you decided to do for a living. We'll kind of start in that area.
Great. I tell you, Justin, I've had quite an interesting life by my standards. And I was born in Dallas, Texas, and went to my high school years in a small town in East Texas, which was a great experience and all. But as I've told so many people in my younger days, I've moved around so much that when people ask where are you really from, it's not an easy answer because I've been at 27 different addresses. But for the last 20 some odd years, I've slowed down on moving. But somebody used to say, what, were you a military brat? I said, no, I just didn't like mowing grass. When it got high enough, I moved. I went to school in East Texas and moved to Florida. Been there, in fact, moved to Florida twice, lived in Northern California for 3 years and just did just about everything you can imagine. Early days, did some interesting things. Probably the one that most people get a kick out of is that my brother and I, when we were 18, 19 years old, we were selling wigs out of a step van in Florida. And that was kind of a wild experience, but we decided to give it up one day when my brother was chased by a guy with a machete who thought my brother was trying to make time with his wife or girlfriend, and all he was trying to do was sell the wig. Wow. But I've done just about everything. But I was blessed that, in fact, I think about you were talking about your background, radio and everything. I actually was in newspaper for a little while back years ago and started in California. But my wife got into banking. Well, we moved back to Texas because I had a lot of family that was getting up in years and I wanted to be close. So we end up back in Texas, and next thing you know, I'm working for Bank of America. I just happened to meet the guy who was district manager, and I told him that back in the 80s, I'd also been a mobile home dealer. And what I loved the most was dealing with the financing. So he ended up asking my wife when he had an opening if she thought I would be interested. So next thing I know, I'm starting a career in banking, and I did that for 20 some odd years. which was quite a blessing to us. But in 2012, my wife and I decided that it was time to do something different. I had always said I wanted to do something in mission work, and that I thought I would do that when I retired at 66. But at the age of 58, we just decided it was time. So 2012, we made the decision that we would get out of banking, retire from that, and I ended up going to work with an organization, Eastern European Mission. What they had done for 50 years and continue to do today is provide free Bibles to anyone that would like a free Bible in the area of Europe, Eastern Europe, the countries that were under the old Soviet bloc, and the people there just couldn't afford the Bibles, and so I helped raise money to provide those Bibles free to people there in Eastern Europe, and particularly Ukraine, where you might find it interesting that something I wish we could do here in America with you being a school teacher as well. There's nearly, in Ukraine until this war began that they're dealing with now, there's nearly 5 million children studying the Bible every day in public school, which I thought was just awesome. It's one of the reasons, in fact, the first time I heard that, my wife and I looked at each other and said, maybe we need to move to Ukraine. But it was a great work. I did that for 8 years. And, of course, that's what brought me to Tennessee. Of course, I told everybody when I moved here 9 years ago, I said, 3 brothers in the 1890s moved to Texas with their wives. And that's how my family began, in Texas. And I told them, I said, well, that you Tennesseans, you sent Davy Crockett to Texas, and I'm what you got back. Sorry about that. But I moved here 9 years ago and immediately started being asked by friends back in Texas, you going to move back? You going to move back? And I was like, no, I don't think so. I really love it here. And I do. I mean, the beauty of the area. And for people that grew up here, they may not really see it, because we never really appreciate where we grow up till maybe later in our life. The streams, the rivers, the mountains, the hills, to me, that's just beautiful. Well, here I've been here 9 years, and if I ever thought I was going to move someplace else, I've got problems with that now because I've got 13 people have moved here, their family and his extended family, because I told them how great it was. So now we're helping to populate the area.
That's great.
So it's been an interesting ride. I've done so many different things and enjoyed so much, but we've been greatly blessed. And so we met wonderful people here. In fact, two men I walk with 5 days a week, James Hinkle and Jim Gray, are great friends of mine, and we walk down. In fact, you may see us walk right in front of your office here. We walk down College Street and end up most days at Dixon Donuts. And my wife, who was quick to point out when we started doing it, she goes, for years I wanted you to walk with me, but you'd never do it. I told her, I said, you never put a donut at the end of the walk. So
that makes the walk a little,
it does.
A little sweeter.
It definitely does. But we just love it here, and don't ever plan on leaving. I just love it.
That's great. And and I've been here pretty much my whole life, other than leaving for college and a few jobs that have taken me in some different places. But I think something that you said right there does kind of ring true to me. You kind of take it for granted a little bit about how great of a place it is. I really noticed it when I moved off and kind of missed it a little bit and wanted to come back. But that's one of my favorite things, though, about talking to people who, and through real estate, we get the chance a lot lately to meet people who are moving to the area. And it's really fun to get to talk to people about why they want to come here, because it helps you to remember why you love it here so much. And like you said, things just kind of blend into the background after a while, and the place that you live, it just kind of becomes part of every day, right? You don't think about it every day. But
yeah, when I would, of course, I covered like 7 states with Eastern European Mission, but my primary area was right here in Middle Tennessee. And I remember going into a Kentucky Fried Chicken, and I met a young lady behind the counter, was talking to her, because I will talk to anyone. And she just kind of voiced how, she couldn't wait till she was old enough she could get out of here type thing. And I said, yeah, you feel that way now, but trust me, when you're older, you'll want to come home.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we have a great we have a great home here, a great place to live, and I think that's why so many people, you're starting to see an influx in the past couple of years of people moving here, is because it was kind of think a well-kept secret for a while about how great our living was right here around Nashville. And,
Exactly.
And now the secret's kind of out, and people are coming in droves, and that's a good thing.
I may be the one to blame for that because I have told so many people how great this place is.
Well, that's pretty common because I asked a couple the other day that I met that was moving here from California, and I said, how'd you find out about Dixon? I said, well, we had some friends in California who moved out here, and we contacted them and said, how's life out there? And they loved it. And They told us how great it was. The next thing you know, we came out here to visit, and we were here for a week visit. And by the end of that week, we're, contacting realtors and setting up showings and putting contracts on homes and getting U-Hauls. Yeah. And the next thing you know, riding a U-Haul across the country to get here too. So, and that's a great thing. That really is. It's good. And I'm sure we'll talk here in a few minutes about growth because that's a big issue here in the election, I guess.
Certainly is.
So let's kind of move more to the office that you're seeking here. It's county commission. But I'll let you talk just a little bit about that. But talk to the listeners who are listening who maybe don't really know much about the county commission. Kind of give us a brief overview of what that is.
Well, county commissioner, of course, working with the county mayor, and a big part of the responsibilities is the budgeting of different aspects of the county, school budget, the county's budget, and so forth. But really with a very great deal of attention to the potential growth of the area, and that plays into, and I know it's probably one of the other questions you want to ask, but it plays into why that I would even run. Is I see this area growing a lot in the near future over the next 4 to 8 years. No telling how much growth we'll see, and having the very best minds in county commission and all making the very best decisions for what's to the benefit of the area is so important. And
well, since we're talking about growth, let's just go ahead and skip to it. That's been probably the number one issue that I've heard since I started doing this podcast, and since I've just been talking to people about the upcoming elections. I enjoy, learning more about my community and learning how all those things work. But I'd say probably, schools comes up a lot. You hear people talking about the schools and where we should build schools and how we should run schools and things like that. And but growth, I think, is probably number one as far as growth. It's one of those things. People want to live in a rural area. That's probably why they came to Dixon County and not Nashville or Murfreesboro or Clarksville. We're a little more rural as far as the suburbs around Nashville. And a lot of people want to keep it that way. But at the same time, we want an Olive Garden. We want a Chick-fil-A.
Sure.
We want Target
Right.
and Publix. But you only get those things when you have more people come to the area. And so I think we all understand that growth is coming. But I guess it's smart growth, and it's sort of a balance, but I'll let you kind of talk about that. How can we manage growth smart?
Well, I mentioned to you earlier when we were visiting, I said that in those moves that I've made in my lifetime, I've seen both extremes. I moved here from a city of 12,000 in East Texas that was considered a picture postcard, just beautiful, pristine town. But they had every city ordinance you could imagine, and I had a man one time that I was talking with that was looking to bring a business to that town from Dallas, and he said, I can build a new facility of my business in Dallas easier than I can in Athens. And it was because of all those regulations. But then I also have lived where they didn't have enough of oversight of what was going on. And so you have, in those two extremes, you either have the too many regulations that end up killing growth, or you have no regulations and you get such unmanaged growth that you end up with a lot of areas that are undesirable. And so that was one of the reasons that when I had some friends that came to me and said, we'd really like to see you do this, based on them knowing my background and the things I've experienced in my lifetime. And, I just agreed that over the next 4 to 8 years, we're going to grow here. We've just got to decide what kind of growth do we want. Do we want the type of growth that we can be proud of and our kids would want to stay living here? Or do we want a type of growth that just is unmanaged, and the next thing you know, everybody's going, ooh, this is not the desirable place to be? And I think that that's one of the things that I can offer is really some good sound decision-making, good sound judgment, realizing that balance is important, and that you can do things that they could affect you in a negative way, but you want to make good decisions that are positive. When I was at the bank and managing the bank for so many years, I'd have my staff come to me with a problem a lot of times, and I always looked at them, what's the solution? And they might tell me one. And the thing I asked them always was, does your solution create more problems than the one problem it fixed? And so those are the type of things that I do in everything I've been involved with, is I'm looking at if it's a problem or an opportunity, whichever, what are the answers? And do those answers end up creating more problems, or do they really fix it? Or do they really make things better? And so having that type of mindset, I think, plays to one of my strengths.
And let's talk about maybe your strengths or maybe your qualifications for office, because I hear you talking about maybe some of the things that you've done in the past that may give you a skill set that you can use as a county commissioner. So talk to me just a little bit about your qualifications, and definitely want to know about the jobs in the past that you've done that would make you qualified for this, but also touch on your personality and kind of, some of those characteristics about your personality that might also make you pretty good at this job.
Well, sure. I, of course, being in banking, particularly in a town of 12,000, we were expected to be heavily involved in the community. So, during my tenure and during that time of banking, I served as chairman of 2 different chambers of commerce. I've been president of 2 different Kiwanis clubs, but particularly that time with the chambers and all, you really get a lot of exposure to business and growth and schools and just a complete view of what's needed and what's going on within a city. One of the things that I'm probably most humbled by ever in my life was back in the 90s, I was chairman of a chamber there in East Texas that I didn't even live in this community. There were around a lake there. There were 13 small communities, and they had 3 chambers of commerce. And I got there. I worked there for a couple of years, and I just kept commenting to people, and I kept hearing from people, why are there 3 chambers of commerce in all these towns? And I said, it just really doesn't make sense. Well, sometimes I can't take credit for the end goal happening, but I can take credit for saying, okay, I recognize people that have great influence in the community, and I got them together, and I said, I hear all the time from people that there should just be one chamber of commerce. Well, they voted, yeah, that's true. I said, we need to do, and I laid out a plan for how to have those 3 chambers merged into one and represent all 13 communities. I even called the senior vice president of the Texas Chamber of Commerce, and I said, Art, give me some guidance here. What do you think? He said, Richard, it's never been done. But it happened. Again, not because of my efforts. I just was the idea person. But just to give you an example, I called the lady on the Ford dealership there, and her name was Andrea, and I said, Andrea, I need you to serve on this committee to talk about combining the chambers. She said, Richard, that's a great idea, but it'll never happen. I said, you're right. It will never happen unless you serve. She said, okay, I'll do it. A couple of months later, the 3 chambers voted to join each other. Well, from that, and this is where the humbling experience came in. Here I didn't even live in the community, but they gave me the Citizen of the Year award. And I tell you, when you get something like that from a group of people that you don't even live among them, it's really very humbling. But the thing that they were trying to say is that this would have never happened without you. Well, only because I had an idea and acted on it. And so that was quite an experience. So dealing with that, though, I had to deal with economic development and all the other entities in town. And so we were constantly looking at things like growth and what type of growth we wanted, what kind of businesses we would try to get to come to town. But if you remember, I told you Athens had so many regulations, we struggled with it. One of the things that was so disappointing to hear was, had a guy, we would look at a business coming in and they'd ask him, how much do you pay? And I remember one that came in and said, we pay our employees $30 an hour. And what was he told? Oh, gee, I'm sorry, but that would hurt our current businesses. They only pay about $10 an hour on average. So the guy didn't bring his business to Athens. So those are the type of things that I look at and go, we've got to have growth in order to keep our kids living here. But making those decisions that are best and weighed out, really weigh, are they going to benefit our children and our future? That's what's important.
I feel like lately people are getting a little more civic minded. They're paying a little more attention to, who runs the county and who runs the school board and things like that. Definitely seen that sort of shift in the past couple of years. I'll be honest, even myself, who I'm interested in politics and taught government classes in high school and things like that, I've always kind of been fascinated with it, but maybe I didn't even know exactly, everybody that, served in different capacities within my local government. But over the past couple of years, I've become more interested in it. I think overall, I think people have become more interested in it, and I think a lot more people are deciding to run and get involved and things like that. And so that kind of leads me to my next question is, why did you decide to run? Was there anything that, any specific thing that happened that, pushed you to decide to run? Is it something that you've always wanted to do and it just kind of evolved over time and now we're just here, it's the time is now? Kind of take me through that decision to run for office and what made you do it now as opposed to maybe some other time?
Well, I've always felt like you should give back. And there were times that I was asked to run, when I lived in Texas. When I first moved here and bought a house in Burns at that time, I was approached to run for city council there. And, the times just really weren't right. Particularly when I was back in banking, the president of the bank was very concerned about, being in politics at all and having some people agree with you, some disagree, and would that affect our business and that sort of thing. But so I'm retired now. I've got the time, but I also have the love of the community. But really what also plays a big part in it is I've got grandkids and all the other kids of the different ones that moved here because I told them how great this place was. And caring about them and caring about all the kids and the future of the community, I feel like I need to give back. And I've been greatly blessed in my lifetime. And I tell you that God has always been there for me. And I want to make sure that I do my part to make sure that things are good for the future of these kids.
So you decided to run for county commission instead of maybe running for something else. And,
yeah.
And so I imagine that you probably had some things in mind when you made that decision as far as things that you might do differently. I think that's, usually a big motivator in somebody who decides to run is, I see they've been doing it this way, but I've got an idea that maybe we could do it this way. What would you do that maybe was different from the previous office holder? Or if you don't want to comment specifically on that person, because I hate to put people on the spot and say criticize your predecessor, but just kind of how would you approach the job differently than maybe the way it's been done in the past by anybody in any seat?
Well, I kind of touched on it when we first met. Carl Buckner is the other gentleman that's running, and when I was asked, the one thought that came to my mind is I don't know him, but I need to go meet him. And so I went to his house, knocked on his door, and I sat for 3 hours and visited with Carl and his wife. Lovely people. I thoroughly enjoyed. I walked out there going, maybe I shouldn't even run. He's an extremely nice guy. And I was impressed with him and enjoyed the time. He expressed that he, was hoping to just run this one more time. But then, I had the folks that had approached me about running to begin with remind me that, number one, I'd had a lot of people sign the petition to run. But their reasoning for asking me was out of the fact that they see how the future is going as far as growth. And with my background and all, I feel like that I have a lot to contribute there. But the idea is that over the next and I kind of touched on this earlier, that over the next 4 to 8 years, we're going to see quite a bit of growth here. Nashville's coming this way. It's not a matter of, really whether we're going to grow. It's how much we're going to grow and what type of growth. And I think with my background, I've got a lot to offer there. The thing that I really care about is seeing that the community grows in a way that whether you live in the city of Dixon or you live in one of the other smaller cities or in the county, that, each voice is heard and that we listen to what, people think and what they desire and the type of growth they'd like to see. I didn't come into this with, an idea or an agenda. I will definitely listen to both sides and make decisions based on, my best judgment of the information I've received.
I agree with that, and I think that's one of the big criticisms that I've heard of voters who talk to me about, why they want to vote for this person over this person. And one of the big things I've heard is, they're not very transparent. They don't get back to me. They don't communicate with me. So I know that's a big one. But let's talk a little bit about your most important political issues or your platform. And I know we've kind of already hit on this through just about every question I've asked. We've kind of hit on this already. But I want to give you a chance here to kind of maybe go a little more in depth. When you think about the county commission seat and the county commissioners, they're kind of a job that's kind of almost like a catch-all. They have a lot of different areas that they're involved in. When you think about school board, they just focus on the school. When you think about the zoning and the planning commission, they just worry about zoning and planning. But commissioners kind of have their hands in just about everything. And so you can kind of take this in whatever direction you want. We can kind of talk a little bit more about growth if you want, schools, zoning, whatever. But what are some of the main, or maybe even just the main issue that you want to focus on when you get in there, if you're lucky enough to be voted on?
Well, I would say there's three really key issues in my mind. One being the education of our young people, particularly preparing them for the jobs of the future, and then addressing the idea of those jobs. I think for Dickson County, I think one of the things we need to make sure that we're looking at is the businesses that are coming here. Do they fit what our kids look toward for the future? And technology is certainly it. So, anything we could do to attract, businesses of technology, I think would be tremendous, because I know the kids that I come in contact with, certainly my grandkids, it's like one man has said, he said, the reason I wanted my kids to have grandkids is so I'd have somebody tell me how to work my computer. But, it's important that we make sure that we're attracting the type of jobs that will benefit our children. And there's certainly nothing wrong with. In fact, I think it's a tremendous good idea to have jobs like fast food or whatever, where kids can start at a young age and just get that experience of a work experience. I've got a friend back in Texas has 23 McDonald's, and he talks about that all the time, how he started as a kid working at McDonald's. That's great. But you also want to make sure you have those jobs that when they finish college, high school, whichever, technical school, that the type of jobs that they want are here, and they don't have to go to Nashville to do it. So that's important. And then, of course, what ties in with attracting those businesses and those type of jobs is infrastructure. I think right now a lot of people are hearing so much talk about getting electric cars. Well, I also hear a lot about the infrastructure in there. Well, even for all types of jobs, of businesses, you need to have the right infrastructure. You got to make sure that you've got enough water, you've got electrical, and all those different aspects are there, the roads and so forth. That is something that I think is important for us to look at. Highway 96 probably needs to be 4-laned. We probably need more cut-throughs, from there into Dickson. One of the things that when we moved to Tennessee, of course, I was told by Eastern European Mission, you can buy anywhere in Tennessee you would like. I picked this area, but one of the areas we looked at was Spring Hill. Why did we not pick Spring Hill? They got one main drag through town. It takes you all day long to get in or out of there if you pick the wrong hour of the day. Well, we run the risk of that with Highway 46 out here. I had to chuckle and also shake my head and go, oh my goodness, this surely isn't true. But heard a man who's in the know say that the Tennessee Department of Transportation said that 46 is only at 50% capacity. I was like, well, I'd hate to see it when it's 100%.
Wow.
Because you sure don't want to be on that road during the few hours of the day.
It's already to the point where you can't turn left most days.
Yeah.
So I find that hard to believe, but I'm not a TDOT expert.
So, we need to, any way we can, we need to be in discussions with the state or whoever we need to be talking to about, roads so that we don't have, problems of traffic. Nobody wants to sit through a red light 2 and 3 times. So if we can do things like that to make sure that as we grow in numbers of population, we've got the roads to handle it.
And that's interesting because I told you this before the show, I've been in Dickson most of my life, but there have been times when I've had to move off, and for a job I moved out to Murfreesboro, and I just got back a few years ago. And so I lived in Murfreesboro in like maybe 2018, 2017, that area. And Old Fort Parkway, I'll never forget, one afternoon I was trying to get back to Dickson, and I lived in the downtown Murfreesboro area. So it took, you had to go down Old Fort Parkway to get to the interstate. And it took me about 45 minutes to go 2 miles one day. And I was like, man, this is frustrating. I miss the old Dixon County roads.
Yeah.
But, those roads are getting more and more cars on them all the time. And like you said, if we don't do something now to sort of kind of prepare for that, we could end up with a situation where we have an old Fort Parkway, like maybe on 96 or 46 or wherever. But it is important because, if you don't properly plan, you could end up like Spring Hill.
Oh, absolutely can. And again, that goes back to one of the experiences I had. The 3 years I lived in Northern California, I lived in a city that had gone from 16,000 to 80,000 population in something like 15 years. And I asked, somebody, I said, well, how on earth did this town turn out so well growing that fast? And they said, well, they had done a 30-year plan and followed it, and they had done a really tremendous job of making sure that they didn't let things just grow packed against each other. And it was really a wonderful city, and for 80,000 people, and you'd never sit through a red light twice, even around the mall that was in that city. And I've always remembered and thought about that you really need to think in terms of laying out, the growth in such a way that you end up with a lot of free space. Don't just pack these neighborhoods against each other.
And that's a big concern. And like what we talked about earlier, I mean, where's the balance? You can't really stop the growth. And I think at the end of the day, you don't really want to stop the growth because growth can be a good thing. Oh, yeah. But nobody wants to be packed in like sardines.
No, and you've got to protect the interests of people that are interested in agriculture. Mm-hmm. Don't just overtake them.
Yeah. And the north part of our county is still very much an agricultural center, but the south part of the county is changing, and so, there's always been that north and south divide, but it's kind of, the gap is sort of widening as far as what kind of each side of the county specializes in, and you're still seeing the agricultural land and things like that up north, but right around here, right around the interstate and stuff, it's kind of disappearing pretty quick, and it's kind of a challenge, but I think that's one of the biggest issues. Wouldn't you agree, as far as, the growth and things like that?
It is. I mean, you've got to listen to everybody that you can. And hopefully people care enough to be involved enough to actually express, their thoughts of what they'd like to see. And, I had a guy tell me one time, he said, he kind of broke everybody up into three groups. He said people know what's going on, people that don't know what's going on, and people who don't care what's going on. And I thought, well, we need more and more to really care and know what's going on.
Yeah.
And know both sides of the story. I've heard people about different things around the county since I've lived here, and I've thought, but have you asked why? Why? And that kind of goes to you'd mentioned that, what would I say to people that were, looking to vote for me? Why would they vote for me? Well, I can tell you, I'm going to ask why in every issue we deal with. Tell me both sides. It kind of goes back to what I mentioned earlier about asking that staff member, does your fix create more problems than what we already have? So if you're looking at me and you're trying to decide whether to vote for me, the thing is I can tell you, I'm going to look at both sides of an issue. And I'm not going to take forever, because I was blessed when I was a young guy. My brother and I that were just 17 months apart, we spent a lot of time together, and both of us were mentored by a man that in 1969, 70, 71, he made $300 million. So when Glenn spoke, my brother and I listened. But I always remember different things that he said, and one of them was more loss and indecision than wrong decision. So I will make a decision, and I won't take too long, but I'm going to feel like, before I make that decision, have I gotten all the best information I can get?
I like
Pros
it.
and cons.
I like it. That's wise words right there. And kind of talking about planning, there's been a few meetings. I don't know if you got a chance to go to any of them, but there were a few meetings here in Dixon County. I think there were 3 or 4. It was pretty insightful. They had them in the different municipalities. I know Burns, White Bluff, Dixon, I think there might have been one for Dickson County as well. And I thought that was pretty eye-opening. And I thought it was smart that, as a county, we're noticing that it's becoming an issue, and we're trying to kind of get out in front of it. So that made me happy, and to hear that there were pretty good turnout at some of them. Mm-hmm. I didn't get a chance to go to every one of them, but the ones I didn't get to go to, I heard there were pretty good turnout. The one in Burns, they said there wasn't any more room in that little area.
Great. Well, I went to one, and I made sure and expressed my three biggies: the schools, the infrastructure, and of course the bringing jobs here that are for appeal to the future of our kids.
So I'm getting down to the end of my questions here. I think I've pretty much asked you everything that I ask every candidate, but kind of here, just kind of a catch-all question here. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to, or is there anything else that you want the voters to know about you while you have the opportunity, while you're kind of in their ear right now?
Well, Justin, I think we've probably covered about everything I could say on that, but at the same time, I would just say, if you're looking for somebody with no agenda, somebody that really just cares about the community without having an agenda. I've so many times I've seen people in the past run for an office, either a city council, county position, or whatever, in my lifetime, and they always seem to be running because they're a single issue person, and that's unfortunate, because the needs and the concerns of any community is greater than one item. And so I'm going in and asking for people to vote for somebody like me, who's going in with no agenda, no preset idea of anything, just wants to give back to the community and contribute in any way I can, and trust that I'm going to listen to everybody that wants to talk to me, and I'll make a decision of what is best for the whole. And I'll feel bad for anyone that maybe something won't work to their benefit, because just face it, there's always somebody that feels like this didn't work to my benefit, and that's not a misstatement either, that it didn't. It is something that works there, against them. But it's just like everything in life. There's always going to be somebody that's going to get the lesser end of the deal, but you got to look at what benefits the whole, the majority. And if you can, try to make sure it benefits everybody. But let's be real, that's not possible, really. But I will care about even those that don't get their way.
Let's see. So if there's somebody out there, and I'm sure there is somebody out there who's thinking to themselves, Justin, why don't you ask this question? You've had him in the seat here for 37 minutes, and you haven't asked him this particular question. And there's going to be stuff that I leave out. I try to do my best about just asking general questions so that they can get an idea about the candidates. Yeah. But if there's somebody out there who wants to know something very specific that I haven't asked, is there a way they can contact you? I know sometimes people leave phone numbers, email addresses, websites, Facebook pages. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, how could they possibly do that?
They can reach me by my Gmail. It's RERBank, so RERBANK @gmail.com. And I'll be glad to respond and meet with anybody that would like to meet with me, and sit down and have a cup of coffee, or just they can take a walk one morning with us at 7:45 walking down College. Although I say that, I should back up and point out we've gotten kind of wimpy in our older years here. It's in this heat. We've been walking Walmart.
It's hot, isn't it?
Oh, it is. And of course, naturally, our listeners don't know what day they'll be listening to this, but we just got a little bit of rain outside.
Yes.
So we're both sitting here smiling big for that. But it is really hot. And
it has not been raining at all, really.
Yeah. So I've gotten to know a lot of the employees at Walmart as we walk. But no, anybody that reaches out to me, I'd be glad to meet with them and talk, whether it's over coffee or wherever. But RERBank @gmail.com, they can reach me.
Awesome. And I would encourage you to reach out and ask him some specific questions so that you can make the best informed decision that you can before you head to the polls, if you have not gone yet. So this Saturday, we've got a cool event taking place in Burns. I'm really excited about it. It's the second annual barbecue festival, and our barbecue bash. Morgan, if she's listening, please forgive me if I got the title of it wrong there. But the main thing is it's a Burns barbecue event. event, okay? And so they're going to have all kinds of barbecue being served out in Burns. And I believe this year they're having it out at the new Burns baseball field, which is out right next to Stuart Burns Elementary, right there on Highway 96, pretty close to East Side Road there. And it's barbecue competition. So there will be different barbecue cooks, barbecue chefs. I'm not sure what the correct term here is, but people who make barbecue, and we have a lot of great ones here in Dickson County. Per capita, maybe better than anywhere in the world, I'm not sure, but we've got some great barbecue makers here in our area, and they are going to be having a cook-off Saturday, this coming Saturday, which is July the 31st, if I'm not mistaken. I don't have my notes in front of me, but I've been saying that on the radio for the past couple of weeks, so I think I've got it right. And it's going to be fun. And so this next question is a question I always ask at the end of the interview. It's about your 30 or 60 second elevator pitch. So if you run into somebody, let's say maybe, for example, you head out to the barbecue festival this Saturday. I don't know if you're going to go out there or not. I'm going to try to go out there because it was such a good event last year. I really would like to head out there and see some of my barbecue making buddies. But if you're to run into somebody at the barbecue festival or maybe right around the corner here in downtown Dixon, and they run into you, say, "Hey, Richard, I heard you're running for office. Why should I vote for you?" And you only have their attention for maybe like 60 seconds because maybe their wife's in the car yelling at them to come on or whatever it may be. How would you answer them in a really short amount of time?
Well, I really believe, Justin, the thing that I would want to share with them is kind of some of the things I've already stated about myself. If you're looking for somebody that loves this area, cares deeply about the future of the area and the population, and particularly our children, then I'm the person that you can trust will make decisions will try to benefit everyone. And I would really want to stress to them that I'm passionate, but I'm not radical. I'm just very even-keeled. I want to make the best decisions that benefit everyone.
Well, Richard, thank you for coming and talking to me today. I really appreciate it. It's been a great conversation. Appreciate you being willing to come in here to the Redbird Realty Studio with me and answer all my questions. And I really enjoyed getting to meet you, by the way. It's been a lot of fun. And so as we close out here, let's talk to people about you real quick and go ahead and remind them about, go ahead and give your name one more time. Give what office you're running for. And if you know the dates right off the top of your head, I think the election date is next week, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Thursday, I believe.
Yeah, and early voting is running out, but I'll let you kind of set the stage here. Tell them your name and everything, and then when they can go vote.
Yes. Well, name again is Richard Riehn, and I'm working for running for County Commissioner, District 7, and the election is next Thursday of next week, August 4th. And for those that are in District 7, the voting location is the Pomona Road Church of Christ. And I hope you'll come out and support me. And if not, one thing I'll tell you, again, I really like Carl Buckner, and if that's who you vote for, I respect that. And I know he'll do a fine job too, but I think I offer something a little special, a little different, and a little bit more progressive on the idea of what is best for the community and all, and yet very conservative in my thinking. You imagine, in fact, one guy told me, he says, "Richard, you're from banking. You just always try to think of the reason things won't work?" I said, "No, I'm not one of those bankers. I look for how to make things work."
That's great. And I want to just say on the way out here that I appreciate you and I appreciate all these other candidates because, I've seen on TV some kind of mudslinging back and forth, but I have not seen that here in Dickson County. And people that are running against each other, have really been kind to one another. You haven't seen a lot of that dirty politics type of stuff, and I think that's something that we've been able to kind of keep in our culture here in Dickson County, and I hope we don't ruin that going forward. But I appreciate guys like you, shaking the hand of your opponent, sitting down with them and talking, and that's really what it's all about here. And that just kind of warms my heart to hear that you guys are getting along, and other opponents are doing the same thing. And I actually haven't heard about really any dirty politic kind of stuff going on. Maybe behind the scenes that I'm not seeing. But overall, it seems to be going pretty well, and I appreciate you and the other candidates for keeping that culture going.
Well, let me also thank you just for having me and all. I really appreciate it. This is so great to be able to come and share with through you, and appreciate your efforts, and I appreciate you as a school teacher and a realtor. But you and I have talked about you being a history teacher, and I love history, so I really appreciate all teachers, but I definitely love history teachers.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you coming on the show. And this podcast has been a lot of fun. The main reason I did it was just to get the information out to the listeners. But if guys like you wouldn't agree to come and sit down with me, it wouldn't be possible. So I appreciate you being willing to do that, because it can be kind of nerve-wracking and stressful to do these interviews. But I think it's great for the community to be an informed voter base, and without you guys agreeing to come sit down with me, it wouldn't be possible. So thank you very much for that.
You bet.
And,
thanks again for having me.
Absolutely. So I want to mention one more thing on the way out. On election night, I saw Mr. Dale Riehn Saturday morning at WDKN. We do radio shows there around the same time, and I love Mr. Riehn. He's such a good guy, and he was telling me, we got a big plan for election night down here on Main Street. They're going to block the street off. They're going to have a big board where they're going to make announcements on who the winners are. Everybody's welcome to come on down. Of course, Reagan's business right there has a nice bathroom that he has open to the public, so you can come hang out. There's going to be food and drink at all the different businesses, and so I think it's going to be a real fun night. And so I just want to kind of encourage everybody. I didn't realize that they were doing that. I hadn't heard the details of it yet. I assumed they would, but Dale was letting me know, Justin, we've got it in the works. We're going to be doing something real fun right there in front of Reagan's. Streets are going to be blocked off, so come on down. And I just wanted to mention that on this episode, because we did the other episodes a little earlier in the election cycle. I hadn't heard that yet. So for those that are listening to this particular podcast, just note that on election night, feel free to come on down to downtown Dixon. They're going to have basically a little block party, it sounds like, where everybody's going to be kind of hanging out. And I know a lot of the candidates will be there, so that'll be fun. And I hope to see all of you out there. And I just want to thank you again, each and every one, for listening to these different episodes. And I think we've done about 15 or 16 now, so this has been really great. And if there's anybody else listening, it's not too late. I'll do the podcast all the way down to election day if you want to do it. Please reach out to me. My email is coachspurlock@gmail.com. So that's COACH, my last name, Spurlock, SPURLOCK @gmail.com. And if you'll shoot me an email there, I'll be glad to work it out, and we can get. I think that's how you got a hold of me, was you sent me an email.
It was,
and so it's pretty easy, right? All you got to do is send an email,
absolutely.
and within a few days, I'll find a time that works for both of us, and we'll get it done. So, again, thank you to all the listeners of Dixon County. Don't forget to go out and vote. It's happening next week. And again, thanks to my guest, Mr. Richard Riehn, who is running for County Commission, District 7. Everybody in Dixon County, have a great and wonderful day, and I'll see you at the polls, and I'll see you election.